Hey guys, it's Sarah from What a Nerd Girl Says, and I have something really exciting that I am filming today. As some of you guys might know, I'm not just, a blogger, but I'm also an aspiring author, and I've been working on my novel, The Awakened, since about October now, and it's going pretty good, and probably like at chapter 22 or something, and yeah, I mean, it's going really good, and I'm trying to maybe, I don't know, drum up some interest or kind of give you guys an update on like what's going on with that and stuff. So I figured I'd come on here and read a little bit of it for you, and you guys can kind of see what it's about, and hopefully we can get some interest for it once it's done. To give you kind of an idea of what it's about, like I said, the novel's called The Awakened, and it's about a girl named Katie. Nope, her name is not Katie. Her name is Zoey. Her name was Katie. But I read an article about how like the most popular name in like YA Lit is Katie, and I was like, I don't want that to be me with like the most like I don't know, it just bugged me, so I changed it to Zoe. So let's start over. The novel is about a girl named Zoe who lives in New York City, and a virus outbreaks, and it wipes out a good third of the population. I mean, super fast, and they don't know where it came from or how to cure it or any of that stuff. And everyone's getting kind of worried until one day the bodies of the victims of the disease just disappear. They're just gone, and people are scared. People don't know what's going on, and that sort of thing. And um, then one day they reappear, all the bodies, and they're alive, and they're kind of like zombies, but not. They're, my zombies are a little different, and they call them the Awakened, and they are extremely fast, and very intelligent. They can speak. They remember who they were before, but their really only focus is to get what they crave, and what they crave is human flesh. And so the part that I'm going to read for you guys today is I'm as spoiler free as possible, and it's just kind of Zoe is traveling somewhere. She's traveling somewhere to be safe, and she's brought along a boy from her school who has kind of been a bully to her whole life, and she kind of gets stuck with him, on her like path to survival. So here we go, guys. We're gonna read this. It was the third day when we ran into the pack of Awakened. We were stumbling along the woods to find a clearing, somewhere to camp for the night, when we bumped right into them. They moved ever so slightly, and they had been sleeping. I didn't even know they could sleep. Ash held his arm out to me, and I ran into it, a slight oof escaping my lips. He raised his index finger to his lips, his eyes wide. I counted the Awakened curled up together, using each other for warmth. I wondered for a moment whether they needed it, if they even felt the elements. I shivered, and we started backing up slowly. My eyes stayed on them the entire time, afraid they could hear me breathing, that they could hear my heart pounding like crazy in my head. There was a sudden crack, and I jumped, startled. I looked at Ash, who was looking panicked. There was a broken branch under his foot. We both looked hurriedly over at the Awakened. They seemed to be still asleep, and I breathed a sigh of relief. We turned around and started making our way in the opposite direction. I was afraid to breathe too loudly, afraid that the crinkle of leaves under my boots would alert them to our presence. I could tell Ash felt the same way, because our pace was hurried, but careful. We had made it at least a mile away when Ash let out a breath, and I paused, leaning against a tree, calming my heart down. I was hot and sweaty, whether from the walk or the panic I was feeling, I didn't know, and I peeled off my coat. I examined the cuts on my arms, relieved that they were beginning to heal. My nose wrinkled in disgust at the scars that seemed to be forming in their place. I was definitely going to look like a fighter from now on. My fingers ran along the jagged strings that ran across my face. I winced at how tender it was. I was going to have the ugliest scar in the world on my face. We should move on, Z, Ash said, taking a gulp from his bottle and holding it out to me. I shook my head, and I turned to walk away. I bumped into something solid and cold. I looked up and screamed. The Awakened had caught up to us, silently. They had probably followed us ever since we had left them in the clearing, letting us get further and further away from the highway and deeper into the woods. Ash and I both grabbed our guns and our holsters, but there was no time. They looked starving, and they were on us in an instant. "Run!" I screamed. Ash didn't hesitate. We both turned and ran, sprinting through the woods, running for our lives. I couldn't breathe. I felt a stitch in my side as we went sprinting through the forest. I felt branches scratching at my face and arms. There was a relieving sound of solid footsteps that told me that Ash was still running alongside me. In the not so far distance, I could hear the light footsteps of the wagon behind us. I jumped over a fallen log, a stray branch ripping into my jeans. I winced in pain, but continued running. I would worry about it later. I wouldn't worry about it until I could stop. Ash made a sharp right in front of me, and I followed him, each step sending another wave of pain through my legs. I needed to stop. I didn't know how much longer I could last. I listened to the voices behind us, wailing for us, begging for us to stop. I shuddered at the sound. I spotted a tree about 20 feet away, so closely growing to the others. The branches of the trees overlapped and could potentially provide some cover. "Ash," I called, running to the tree and started to find some footholds to climb. He switched directions and came towards me, using his hands to lift me into the tree. I leaned down, extending my hand. He took it and I pulled hard, helping him to reach the first branch. Together we moved as quickly as we could, up higher in the tree until the branches were so dense that we couldn't move any higher. I pressed my body as close as I could to the trunk, breathing deeply and slowly, trying to calm my heart down, trying to make as little noise as possible. Ash was on the other side of me, his hands close to mine on the trunk. He met my eyes and then looked down. The awakened had just caught up with us. They scattered in different directions, some of them heading further up the hill and some of them heading east towards the river. A few of them stopped mere feet away from us. They started converses between themselves, but their voices were too low for either of us to hear. I couldn't believe their ability to communicate and work together. This was a large group, at least 20. I knew it wouldn't be long before their heightened emotions got in the way, and they started tearing themselves apart. I just hoped it would be long after they'd left us alive. They stayed under the tree for a fair amount of time. It felt like hours, but I knew logically that it couldn't have been more than half an hour at the most. I couldn't hear anything they were saying, just their distinct hoarse and labored breathing. It filled me with terror, but I closed my eyes and focused on my heartbeat, the movement of my chest as it rose and fell with each breath. Finally, they took off, their quick steps soon fading into the distance. We didn't drop right away. We waited, our muscles relaxing as the sounds faded and disappeared. After another half hour, we descended, taking each step carefully. Ash jumped down first and held out his arms for me. I rolled my eyes at him and jumped on myself and landed uneasily on my injured leg. "Are you okay?" Ash said, grabbing my arm and holding me up. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, easing myself onto a log. "It's minor." I peeled the ripped fabric away from the gash and leaned forward to examine it. It wasn't that deep, but there was blood getting everywhere. "Get the first aid kit." Ash sat next to me, digging through his pack to pull out the first aid kit. He pulled out a bandage and the antibiotic ointment. He poured a little bit of water on it and used a cloth to wipe it clean. His hands were gentle as he spread the ointment over it, pausing when I winced. Once it was wrapped, I smiled slightly in thanks. "All better," he said. "Thanks," I said, examining it a bit. It seemed these days that there would always be a spot on my body covered in crusty, bloody gauze. "When did you get so good at this?" "I guess when you sew someone up, you just get good at the rest of it," he admitted. His eyes met mine, and I felt a flush go through me at the ugly scar that was sure to be healing across my face. It was still tender, sore, but Ash had done a fairly decent job considering. I would always have had an ugly scar on my face, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. I ducked my head anyway. I had never been too concerned with my looks, but I had enough vain and personal pride to be upset about it. "Yeah," I laughed hollowly. "I guess you're right." I stood up and started shouldering my pack again. "Z, we should get going," I said firmly, avoiding his eye contact. "I know we aren't far from Constance." "Zoey, I also think we should get out of this stupid forest before it gets too dark. It'll be easier to see what's coming at us once we hit the flats." "Zoey." "What?" I said, finally looking up at him. "You still look beautiful," he said. "Scar or not, you look great." "Oh, okay." I knew this was the furthest from the truth. I was an absolute wreck. It had been days since we had been able to stop and bathe at a water source. My hair was greasy and stringy, pulled back into its usual ponytail. I was disgusting, dirty, smelly, and I had the jagged scar across my face and several on my arms. I had never looked or felt more disgusting in my life. He stepped closer to me, and I felt myself automatically step back. My back hit the solid roughness of the tree trunk. I can tell you don't believe me. I believe you, I said quickly and softly, as he stepped even closer. I felt warmth seep through me as he stepped even closer. I can show you, if you want me to, he said, his lips a brush of skin on my jawline. I shivered. I don't think that's necessary, I said, my voice shaking. He chuckled lightly, his breath so light on my skin. He trailed light kisses right under my ear, down my neck, across my collarbone. I could hardly breathe. I felt my arms raise, as if they had a mind on their own, and my hands latched onto his waist. I felt that if I let go, I would fall over, that I would simply just lose control of my ability to stand up. Do you want me to stop? He whispered against my neck. He kissed it again, this time with more pressure, right on my pulse. I felt a shiver go through my spine, and my fingers clenched tight around him. He had asked me something, a question, I think, but I couldn't remember. I was in a fog, being this close to him. He stepped even closer to me, his body aligned with mine. His lips were dipping closer to my collarbone, and I felt the breath catch in my throat. He was so soft and warm, and close to me, and I still couldn't figure out why he was doing this. Do you want me to stop now? His soft voice said again. Do you feel beautiful now? His breath tickled across my cheek, where his lips were hovering right above my own. Because you are insanely beautiful. So beautiful. Beautiful and terrifying, I thought. Just like my dream. Ash, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. My heart was pounding so loudly. I had finally calmed it down from the chase, and now it was acting up again, but in a crazy, wonderful, stupid way. Yeah? Stop. Please. Just stop, okay? I squeezed my eyes shut, feeling tears spring at the corner of my eyes. He pulled away, shock on his face. Z. Stop calling me Z. It's not my name, I said, pushing myself off the tree. I walked around him. And don't touch me again. So yeah, that was a little bit of my novel. I hope you liked it. This is just a little bit. I hope it was a good part to pick. I want to pick some other ones, but they were like really spoiler filled, and that was just awful. So I picked that one. And yeah, you can read the first few chapters. I think the first 5 on my Wattpad, which I will include in the little box down there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for listening, guys.
They're coming creeping from the corner, and all I know is that I don't feel safe. I feel the tapping on my shoulder. I turn around in an alarm.